Hi guys, and welcome back to the Uninkable Dads. And this week we will be going through not just a few deck lists, but a few Amythest deck lists. Everyone's talking about how exciting they are for all these new Amber cards and all the secret spice and the board wipe, but we know the one true colour you really need to be worried about. So, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Grant Legman.
Evening, everyone.
So this works out perfectly. You know, we're talking about Amethyst, and you're sitting here with your Amethyst t-shirt, you know, and he's now going to talk to us for the next 45 minutes on how Ruby Amethyst is back, and it's the best deck ever.
It is.
But
it
before
is,
he
and
does
it's
that,
not just me saying it.
Well, you know, it doesn't count if you're getting Lily to say it as well. But before we jump into that, obviously, it is Axxion this weekend. If you're listening to us on your way down there, don't forget, you can still get 5% off your ticket for any event, so you can still get it off for your Sunday event if you haven't already bought your Sunday ticket. So yeah, just a little reminder that is still obviously ongoing and it's still available.
And if you can't get down there, it is being streamed.
Mm-hmm.
The casting team looks fantastic, so I think it'll be a great production, so you can still keep track of what's going on, what decks are dominating. So make sure that you look out for that online.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a busy weekend for Lorcana all round, isn't it? We've got a CCQ on and a DLC, so there's going to be plenty to watch and keep an eye on. So, but talking about keeping an eye on a deck, come on then. I can see you're itching. You're itching at the skin. Come on then. Why is Ruby Amethyst back?
So Ruby Amethyst is back because it's got a board wipe. So this was where we were. Exactly. This was where we were last set, right? We were saying, well, it's got some tasty cards. It's got the Diablo back. It's got the Headless Horseman. You know, there's some nice cards here, but it gives it a different flavor, right? It's a much more aggro kind of type deck, and it didn't have that board wipe. But along comes good old Hams himself, Wreck-It Ralph, smashing things up to give you a board wipe. So, for those who are not familiar, Wreck-It Ralph is a 7-cost uninkable. Sound familiar in Ruby? He's a 3/4 with boost 1, and anytime you put a card under him, he gets an additional point of strength. And he has 3 lore, so he's a card that kind of needs to be answered. And when he is answered, when he's banished, you banish all characters with strength less than or equal to Wreck-It Ralph. So, in his plain vanilla state, if you like, he gets banished, and all characters on your side of the board and your opponent's side of the board with strength 3 or less also get banished. But we've got plenty of ways in this deck to give him extra strength. Obviously, boosting him is one. We've got Lumiere, who gives each of our characters +1 strength. We've got the Headless Horseman. So when the Headless Horseman is played down, he banishes a character with 2 strength or less. As soon as a character is banished, each one of your cards get an extra point of strength. If you banish something else as well, all your other cards get another point of strength. And then we've got Medallion Weights. So this is a 2-cost item that you can tap, pay 2 lore, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn, and whenever they challenge another character this turn, you may draw a card. So probably the hardest thing in this deck, or the hardest thing with this board wipe, it's not making it effective, because there's plenty of ways of getting Wreck-It Ralph up to 5, even 6 strength, and then you're banishing most things in the game. It is making sure that you banish him. He has 4 willpower, so your opponent may not have cards that you can simply crash him into to banish. But in comes Lonely Grave. So this is a 1-cost item. You can tap it, banish chosen character of yours, put the top card of your deck face down, under one of your characters or locations with boost. So this banishes Wreck-It Ralph, but also the card goes under Wreck-It Ralph before his abilities triggered, right? So it's boosting Wreck-It Ralph's strength by 1 as well as banishing him. So we are effectively back to a 7-cost board wipe in Ruby, with all your favorite Amythest cards to back that up. All your draw power in there with your Diablos, your Dumbos, Genies, Hades, Demona, Woodchuck Guidebook, the library. You just pulling cards into your hand. You've got a couple of 2 questers in Diablo, Genie, Headless Horseman, also Demona and Wreck-It Ralph who can quest as well. So it feels like the missing piece.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure. I'm gonna hold it out here and be the skeptic of this one. I think that's a lot of ink to pull that off. For one thing, and then knowing my luck, I'd have it on board. I'd have the Lonely Grave on board, but not be able to get his strength high enough to deal with everything on the board. I don't know. I'm not too sure on this. I think it's very big and clunky. But then you say that, the Princeville combo, if you're paying 9 ink and 3 for thingy, that's 12. So technically this is cheaper and can do the same job. So, well, technically does a worse job because it clears your side as well.
Yeah. Not a
So
one-sided.
yeah, I'm not entirely convinced. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know on the lore side of this on how you would stand with Headless on board if you could keep buffing your things out of range because it vanishes. So it's like,
you've got Iago, Headless, and Demona, who all have base stats above Wreck-It Ralph's. So obviously Medallion Weights only buffs the one character that it targets, but Lumiere is buffing everything, so they would remain safe. But again, Lonely Grave, if you're triggering it with Lonely Grave, that's only putting cards under cards that have boost. So that's not going to help Iago, Headless, or Demona because none of them have boost. So they don't get any benefit from that. So
no, I think it's definitely, this is the most viable chance we've seen for this to work. So, my biggest thing was obviously when we played it, you needed a power play for your next turn, right? So obviously in Red Blue we had the double mana, so it'd be Beeper at double mana, and then it's hard to come back from the game at that point. Whereas we don't seem to have that. I mean, we do have the library, which will massively help. If you can get a library down, move a couple bits in there before you banish and draw and leave a library on board, that's going to be good. But I think in the meta where we're more hand size dependent. So the person with the biggest can get more cards in hand is more likely to be the player who has the advantage. With the guidebook and Demona and the library, it's a strong package. We know this from other decks, so I think it's definitely got a possibility.
And
if put the fear into a few aggro decks, that's for sure.
Absolutely, this should deal with aggro very, very nicely. If you just flick over a slide, Ink Tracker, which you've introduced to us previously. So this is a website where you can record your games. So this isn't taking tournament stats or anything like this. This is just up to whoever decides to use it, inputting their games, and they can be games with friends, they can be competitive games, they can be Lorcanito games. So, but global statistics for the last week, Ruby Amethyst is top.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short count number, but yeah. It's top out of the 29 times it's been played. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those ones that I've always said, like, I think Ruby Amethyst can always come back. It's just the biggest issue you have with Ruby Amethyst is they have so many good tools, but you really need to narrow down on what the meta is before you know what you need. So if it's a very low to the ground meta, we know we've got the headless in there, and stuff like that we can deal with low to ground stuff. If it's a taller meta, we need to change out the headless for like Dragonfire and stuff like that to deal with the bigger bodies. So until we get further into the meta and work out exactly where we're at, I think that's when Ruby Amethyst starts to shine. But this is probably the most positive start Ruby Amethyst has had for quite a while. Like I said, normally we're saying this about 4 or 5 weeks into the set when someone's realised what's going on, not the first weekend. So it's a good positive. I'm excited to see where this ends up. Maybe throwing a few half sharks in there. I can't help myself when if I'm playing Ruby, I've got to try and get him in there somewhere. So, but
if you're not going to play Ruby with Amythest, what are your other options?
And you just play the most broken deck of the set, right? So you just do everything before everyone else. So Parrot of Blue. So yeah, I mean, Blurple finished off relatively high last set, and I think it's still going to be up there. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. No new cards in this deck apart from the Lego, which is technically not a new card; it's a reprint, but technically it's a set 11 card. It shows how locked and how well designed this deck was beforehand. And all we're doing now is saying, well, whatever you play is going to end up in your ink one way or another. We've got 12 chances of putting it in your ink, so that's a lot of ink. So
that Let It Go does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
To this deck, I've been testing online with Purple Steel, and there are some lines where without Let It Go, you'd previously have had Blurple in a bit of trouble, usually when Purple Steel is on the play. That Let It Go just comes down and you're just like, okay, I'm not going to creep over the line this time. So
yeah, he's basically another Hades, isn't it? And, like we say, it just doesn't have the body to go with it. But I mean, I'm surprised that we don't see the Tigger in this. I expect to see a lot of Tigger around. It helps with the lower matchups, helps with dogs, helps with Amber Steel. But Tigger, it will make the Blurple mirrors worse. So you kind of you have to like you can make yourself stronger into the quicker decks, but if you hit a mirror, you're going to struggle. So it's like, is it worth the sacrifice? With enough practice, you can beat Amber Steel and dogs with this deck as it is. So you don't technically need it. It's just a case of it makes that matchup easier. Same with the whole Wasabi or item hate for the Chromacon or the Snowfall or whatever they're planning on playing. You don't need it to win that match. Obviously, it helps, but outside of that match, it makes all your other matchups worse. So, same
argument for Sven, because I'm slightly surprised not to see Sven in here.
Yeah, it's the uninkable count because of so many matchups. Your 5-drop and your 6, but basically non-inkable anyway. You don't want to be inking Elsa or Demona. There's not a single matchup where they can go in the ink really. So they are basically uninkables as it is. So when you look at it on that, you're basically running, what's that, 16 uninkables because you've got Genie, Hades, Demona and Elsa. So if you treat those two as unequals, you've got 16, which is high. I played around at the start last week in a bit of testing of dropping 1 Genie and 1 Hades for 2 Sven. Didn't hate it. Felt quite nice. But in 90% of the games, it wasn't really doing anything. I just play a big full cross body out and then play Elsa and get rid of it next turn anyway. So it didn't really have the impact that I was expecting. I think, again, we're in this stage of, as the meta gets more and more narrowed down, like a month in or so, we might then see those sort of cards come in where we have to tech for certain things or whatever else. But with the amount of amber out there, you don't really want another evasive in this deck because it just dies to Horseman Strikes.
Yeah.
In the case of Ruby, it will go to Headless, so I think that's why Iago is probably the right choice. Yes, it does the Horseman Strikes, but it does to any action anyway. But it can't get Headless, whereas you have 2 out of the 4 evasives in this can, your Genie and your Elsa can both unfortunately fall that way. So, but yeah, I expect Blurple to be up there. I expect it to be a good, solid, quarter of the meta, really. It's going to be one of the top decks.
And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you'll obviously see on the screen that this is JDRR's Blurple list that we're sort of talking through here. And JDRR has a free Metafy guide to Blurple. So I will try and remember to leave the link in the description. It is on screen for those of you on YouTube, but that's a lot of stuff to type out. So
yeah, I mean, if you go to Metafy and search in, JDR, it will come up. So yeah, but then obviously, if we're not pairing it with blue, I'm not pairing it with red. I mean, there's one other decent option. I mean, Steel's always been a decent option, right?
absolutely.
I mean, it's been your favourite deck for a little while. But
It
this
has,
does have some new cards in. This has had a bit of a remix to it. So, do you want to go through a few of these?
Yeah, and I think these new cards really add something to the deck. So we've got the new Christopher Robin. He's a 2-cost Inkable 1/3 quest for 2, and he has the underdog ability. So if it's your first turn, but you're not the first player, so if you're going second and this is your first turn, you can pay 1 to play Christopher Robin down. So this kind of gives you that bit of aggression that Purple Steel just didn't have. That was one of the issues some of the time with trying to get under some of the bigger decks, was you just didn't have 2 questers in your early curve. Well, now I mean, you can go Christopher Robin on 1, Christopher Robin on 2 potentially if you want to, and you're questing for some pretty big lore, unless blue gets Basil down followed by Tipo. If they're not able to do that, then you're kind of potentially up to 6 lore very, very quickly. And then to kind of keep that,
it reminds me of the Maleficent slot. That's what this was. It was the tempo start that if you could get him over the line, the amount of times Purple Steel has got to 14, 16 and not been able to tick over. Whereas if you have that slightly quicker start, you're on 18 potentially already there, sort of thing. So yeah, maybe it is the one card that this deck really needed to help push it over the line.
Yeah. And we've got another Genie, which makes me really pleased. Play 2 Genies in this deck. If you want, you could play 4 Genies in this deck. We could bring back Genie Satisfied Dragon.
I mean, you could play about 12 Genies, but it's not a good idea.
It's not good, but you could genuinely play Genie Satisfied Dragon in this deck, and
yeah.
Actually, Genie.
The unequal one that you banish and draw.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Supportive Friend, I believe. He's actually really. I think he's a genuinely decent card. And I've been experimenting with 3.
It's the unequal one. That's issue.
Yeah, but I've been experimenting with going down to 3 Wish Fulfilled and having 1 of the, because again, with things like Grab Your Bow around, Genie Wish Fulfilled with the 2 strength feels a little bit vulnerable now. So, but we've got Genie Magical Researcher, 3-cost Inkable 3/4 with boost 1. So you can pay 1 to put the top card under him, and each time you do, he gets +1 lore. So don't typically play him on 3, but more typically play him on 4. So you can use the boost straight away. So he's up to 2 lore. And then at the start of turn 5, boost him again, and he's on 3 lore. So again, added to Christopher Robin, he gives you another burst of lore, with your giant cobras to burn some lore. As you go, you can go pretty quick with this deck. And then the final card is kind of going a bit in the opposite direction, making sure that you can still control those really aggro decks, and that's Angel. So she is a 4-cost inkable 3/3 quest for 1. If you've got no cards in hand, she gains resist +2. But her key ability is that once during your turn, you can choose and discard a card and then do 2 damage to a chosen character. So it's once during your turn, but you can do it every turn. So every turn that she's on the board, you can deal 2 damage to an opposing character. So yeah, really strong, especially against the aggro decks. Can really sort of lock them out of the game once you get her down if you've got cards in hand. And again, we're playing Amythest, so plenty of ways of getting cards into hand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's one of those ones we pointed out on the cards to watch thing. It's, from the limited testing and playing we've done, both the Genie and Angel seem very good. We played Sealed and stuff at the weekend, and both of them were a nightmare. If your opponent had either of them, they were going to be a nightmare to answer. The Genie I found as well, obviously you can just leave it. It's like, especially in like matchups where the chances are they don't have a removal for it. They're basically going to remove it once you've quested. You just leave it. Just build it up each turn. And keep doing it. And the next thing you know, it's questioning for like 5-6. And it's a case of, well, if you don't answer it this turn, I'm going to get it again next turn. And then most of the decks that can remove it are going to be blue, which is 90% of the time is going to be going in your ink. So the longer you leave it, the more ink you got as well. So it kind of it's a win-win either way with that. So yeah, it's nice to see it make its way through to the deck. But yeah, I think it's a strong start again. We've got, we're looking at 3 very powerful Amphis decks that all have a very good chance of doing very well. A lot of people are so hyped on Amber at the minute because they do have quite a lot of new cards, but I don't really see any of them being to the point where they're going to change any of the massive meta decks at the minute. In a month's time, someone may get it worked out, but right now, I don't see it happening. Not in time for any CCQ or DLC. Maybe the next one. Maybe in is it Gwent in the 8th of March? I think it is the next one. So maybe by then we might see it. But currently these are quite easily the top 3. So talking about obviously these 3 decks, but if Amber is the most powerful deck out there, then why is no one running Amber Amethyst? No one's obviously cracked it yet, so let us know in the comments below if you managed to crack Amber Amethyst. We think that has a very good chance. You've got all the card draw and all the power that Amethyst has, with all the new bonus fun toys that Amber has. So yeah, let us know in the comments below if you've got any ideas for that deck. But obviously, with CCQ and DLC coming up this weekend, or this weekend, depending on when you listen to this, we would recommend checking out the Law License. This is done by Googly. He is a judge on the Law Guide. I can't remember their Discord now. But basically, he's a judge on there. He's very, very good. And he releases these every set. So he has his set sorted for this one before we have the official update. So you can go across and see his unofficial set notes. Obviously, we won't go through this now. Feel free to take your time and have a look yourselves. But if you go on the Law Guide, this will take you to this document, and it basically goes through this set's trouble cards, as we'll call it. The cards that definitely are going to have some judge calls. Obviously, we can see quite a lot of text about Willow here, so there's going to be a fair amount of judge calls on these, on how things stack up and which order you have to do abilities. So this is definitely worth checking out before you go to those events, or if you just want to make sure you're up to date. You don't want to go down locals and make a mistake. This is here. And if anything, it's just a good read anyway, to be fair.
Absolutely.
So
I think if you're playing competitively, you need to know this stuff.
Yeah.
If you're playing at the kitchen table, why not just be the most knowledgeable person in the room? Gets you bragging rights, and generally, if you're in a situation where no one's quite so sure, it's generally the person that sounds most confident that everyone goes with. So why not, as well as sounding confident, actually have the right information as well.
This week's Lorcana news, obviously, we're just fresh into a set, so there's nothing set-wise, but there is something very shiny to keep your set in. So obviously, Voltex have now released their Set 1 and Set 11 binders and deck boxes. So obviously, you can use our code UNINK10 to get 10% off. I know a couple of people a couple of our locals have messaged me and said, I used a code. So I'm glad it's getting some use out there. So yeah, the Set 1 binders obviously there with the deck box, and then the Set 11 one as well. So yeah, they're out now. So all the information's on obviously Vortex's website. Just pop along over to there and you'll be able to pick them up. I believe the QR code on screen will take you there. So yeah, excited about these. I'm tempted to pick up a couple of deck boxes. I don't think I'm going to go down the binder route just because my storage system's sorted. I like how I store my stuff, but the deck boxes do look quite good, I've got to admit. So maybe tempted to pick them up. So a new set is here, but we can't forget about the old stuff. So it's time for the playoffs. So we are in the final.
Playoffs final.
We are here. Hades versus Genie. So we made it all the way right from the beginning. Hades took out Lady Tremaine, he took out Go-Go, and met Genie in the final.
The ultimate Genie cosmic power
versus the ultimate cosmic power. I don't know, what's Hades? Well, he's up there, isn't he? Surely. So yeah, we just tallied up the votes, and the results are in. It's Prince. No, I'm joking. It's obviously Hades. Hades obviously taking it away. So yeah, that was close. This was closer than I was expecting. It was 60-40 to Hades, so we only just about got it. But yeah, so we're talking about how powerful these Amythest cards are, and the blue one steals it. So
yeah,
maybe it's a sign for Blurple.
So I'm a little bit gutted that Genie couldn't quite get over the line, but yeah, fair dues. Congratulations to Hades, and yeah, is a card that has turned many a game for the last few sets.
Yeah, so that's the results on that one there. So let us know in the comments. What do you think we should be doing next?
Have you got any sort of games that you've played with your locals that you think we could replicate on the channel? Or have you got an idea you'd like to see us try out? So yeah, let us know.
So as it is CCQ and DLC this weekend, we know a lot of people are very busy this weekend, so it's going to be a nice, short and sweet one this week. So as always, it is time to roll up that playmat.
Pack away the dice.
I remember, stay uninkable.
See you next time.
See you next time.